Okay, welcome everyone to our member show award winners artist talk. We are here linked up on Zoom to talk about the work and the inspiration of each of these three wonderful artists. So if you're new to the Art Center, I just want to give you an introduction to our juried exhibitions. We have active artist calls year round. We change our exhibits every 6 to 8 weeks, and each cycle, in addition to the solo exhibitions, we have a juried call. This means we have a different juror each time. Artists submit their work, and select works are chosen to be in the exhibition. And then our juror returns again to select the award winners. And if you're interested in applying for any of those or looking at previous exhibitions or previous artist talks, please visit www.artsarasota.org or our YouTube channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So this artist talk is with regards to cycle 3 of our exhibition season, and we do an annual members show. So only members can submit to this juried call. And we had a component this year where we had our inaugural online exhibition. So every member who submitted work to this show is represented either in person or online. Again, you can find that at our website. So for our award winners tonight, we're going to hear from them and we'll introduce them with their work as they speak. And first, we're going to go ahead and start with our first place winner this cycle, Miss Phyllis. Oops, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Perlie.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this work titled Maya Angelou. So we're going to hear from her real quick. Introduce yourself and talk about this piece, please.
Okay. Whoops. I grew up knowing Maya Angelou. I remember her with Martin Luther King and with Clinton, and of course Oprah. Oprah always had her on. And then I read her book. I don't know if you've ever read her book, but it's called I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. And it's an autobiography. And basically, she was raped when she was 8 years old by her mother's boyfriend. And the man was prosecuted, sent to jail, and later murdered. And as a result, she felt responsible for his death and stopped speaking for 5 years. She never spoke a word for 5 years. And I really believe that that was what enabled her to go inside herself along with a teacher and overcome this trauma by writing and fostering her love of language and expression through words. So I think that says a lot about who she is. And the quilt's background is printed with her quotes, as I described to Meg. Those are all her quotes, which I absolutely love. And this artwork, I tried to echo Angelou's poignant observation about a Black woman's laughter as a survival apparatus, highlighting the depth and complexity of the heroic qualities, endurance, and strength. And I love all of her sayings, and my kids were raised with the sayings on the wall. And one of my favorite is people show you who they are. Believe them the first time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can you talk just really briefly about the material that you're using here? We have
Yes.
fiber listed, but just quickly.
The fiber listed, I used a photo of Maya and I posterized it, which means I turned it to a grayscale. And then I selected the fabrics to use, and it's all appliqued on and then quilted.
Great, thank you very much. And is this a typical scale for your work? I don't have the dimensions here, but it's, yeah, 30 by 30 maybe?
Yeah, or 24 by 24. Yes, I do a lot of portraits, and that's the general scale I use.
Great, Well, thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more from you.
Okay, great.
Congratulations on first place.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have Lindsay with our second place winner. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and yeah, just talk about this piece that won.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay Carlton. I am currently a third year MFA candidate at the University of Florida, and my focus is in creative photography. So for this piece, it is based on the Matonka doll, which is a part of Ukrainian culture. And these dolls date back to probably over like 5,000 years. There are a lot of different uses for these dolls in culture. They can be ceremonial dolls for weddings or the birth of children. They can be play dolls for young girls growing up and learning how to take care of young ones and the responsibilities that they had in that culture, as well as guardian dolls. So that's more so the direction that I was looking at when creating this piece. Guardian dolls will have a lot of layers of symbolism within them. So on the face of the dolls, they are faceless. So they have this cross going across their face. Typically, it will be made of multicolored threads. I chose to make it out of crochet as that's one of the forms of art that was passed down through the women in my family. So that was the significance of that, as well as the different colors used for that. Red, white, and black will symbolize protection, the purity of the archetype of the doll in female archetypes in culture, as well as the black symbolizing rebellion against outside forces. So the hands of the doll typically will hold the thing that they are trying to bring into the world. So if they're holding a baby, it is to ensure fertility. If they're holding wheat or some sort of food, it would ensure a good harvest for the family that it is given to. However, in this circumstance, the doll or myself is holding this bloodied blob. And the statement that I am putting forth in this piece is the lack of control that women have over their bodies in contemporary spaces. However, I specifically rearranged the elements of this doll to kind of have a range of understandings, whether it is protection over this thing that they're holding, or is it that it's already been taken out of their body and they are losing control over that. Yeah, I think that's all I had.
Great. It sounds like you are really interested in the contemporary art sphere and this conceptual practice. Do you often or always use yourself as a model?
Always.
Always. Okay, very cool. Great.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Willem.
It says photograph, inkjet print, fine. But so do I understand you correctly that you made the mask and the vest and all that yourself?
Correct.
Wow. I think you the way you're presenting yourself, you show far too little. You should have said a designer, a creator of the vest, and then you took the photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah, no, that didn't come out. I thought you went somewhere to a fair, you saw a girl, you took the picture, and you had a good eye for it, and that was it. But you're totally underselling yourself.
Very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, for next time.
Yes, next time. Great. Okay, that was a good intro to this piece. We'll move on to Meg and we'll hear from you soon, Lindsay. Okay, great. Our third place is Meg Pierce.
Yes, this is the gauze and also indigo dyed, very light tulle, and also donated vintage vest, or dickie, as we used to call them. One of the wonderful things about using vintage clothing from people, especially these wonderful lace things, is that you get a feeling, I believe, of the people who wore them. There's kind of a soul to it. It's not, it has a life of its own. And it's kind of like an embodiment of the person or a very feminine kind of woman. There's also beading in there and also a lot of stitching. So it's a very iconic kind of form. And it works with a lot of different things, with gloves, a lot of baby clothing that people give me. It's just a very, very personal kind of intimate, form, which I've come to. And I like it that it's intimate, because I think there's a lot of art now that is not kind of based on feeling. That's about it.
Great, thank you, Meg. And I obviously was away for the first few seconds here, but I think it's also worth mentioning that this work is semi-transparent and is sort of off the wall. So in person, it has a little bit of movement to it, and you can see through.
Yes, it's important to me that it moves, because that goes with the kind of personal feeling of it. I have framed these, but I don't like them when they're framed. But people don't know what to do with a piece of cloth.
I live not too far away from Brussels, and I often went to that museum, and I saw all the beautiful lace they did there. Do you use the same technique? So that's my first question. And the second one is, all this intricate work, it must have taken you weeks and weeks and weeks to complete this, huh?
Well, I start with the lace. The lace is given to me. It's found. People give them to me, mostly from their mothers or their grandmothers. In fact, I started this whole line of this whole kind of project when my grandmother gave me all of her old handkerchiefs. But I've always loved the feminine, the soft. And when I came up, that was not the trend. It's not really the trend now either. You want a powerful thing, you want a very strong statement. Well, I didn't really get anywhere in my art until I kind of gave in to that sensitivity and that detail. So for all my students, I always tell them, just find who you are and go with that with your art, because that is where your art lies. But I didn't do the lace. No, I'm not that well reversed in it, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Great. I like that idea that you had to find yourself through the material, Meg. That it kind of went hand in hand. So let's actually keep the conversation going with you. We'll do a little bit longer of a talk. So do you have some samples that you'd like to show, right, Meg?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me just, for everyone who's watching, the in-person exhibition is on view until March 1st. And of course, this video will be up beyond that. So I'm going to stop this share and let's. Change my perspective here. Okay, Meg, it is all you. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about why the medium speaks to you. So I know that you found it, but is there anything, yeah, anything more about the material itself? Go ahead.
Well, the material, and this is one of the, I'm working now on a project up in Dunedin. I'm in a show up there in August and July. And there are 10 of these small dresses, baby dresses. And I believe that the material and the just the size of it and the tenderness of it speaks to us as vulnerable people. We're vulnerable, we have a vulnerability, and that's what speaks to me with these. They're small and they're delicate. We're delicate people. So that is the main thing that I like. And I also am a very obsessive person, so I like doing that kind of work. That all of this design here is shibori, which is all of the white area is where the stitches have resisted the indigo. So I'm kind of obsessive in that way. And that's one of the things that really inspired me of these small dresses. And there'll be 10 of them, and they're all going to be moving as well as hanging from the ceiling. That's the plan anyway.
That's great. When is that show at Dunedin? Do you have the dates?
It's in at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, and it'll be opening on June 13th and going through August. They have a big fiber show there that the whole art center is, containing different fiber artists. So it's a real honor, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great, congrats on that one. So the way that you just mentioned that the stitching resists the indigo,
Right.
is that, I always ask this question about how you choose to make a mark, right? So the design work or the cutting.
Yes.
Is there anything that's like central to your practice that you see in every piece that you make, or any technique that you carry over?
Complexity.
Okay.
It can be stitches, it can be collage. I do very complex collages. And so I guess that would be it. And I also like very close values. I'm not a person that usually has really bright colors or big differences in value. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of very measured.
Mm-hmm. Great. How do you think your work relates to the contemporary art world? You said you're part of a fiber show at Dunedin. That feels great. It feels like you're aligned with the contemporary fiber artists. Yeah, or what do you think your work contributes to that space, maybe?
Well, it's handwork too. It's very related to the hand of usually a woman in many cases. And I really fear the loss of technique and that the hand, the human touch. So that's one of the things that I'm interested in.
And I'll do this with each of you, but maybe because this is our member show as well, you could describe how you relate to the Art Center, maybe a sense of how long you've been participating in our shows. Mm-hmm.
Well, when I moved down here in 2005, and I joined the Art Center right then. So there you go. I've got 20 years in the Art Center, and it's always been a place where everyone was welcomed. That was very important and remains so. So I think that I haven't much made myself available for any of the classes, but I think it's very, very important for art education because that's what my background. I was an art teacher. I'm very cognizant how important the art education is in the art center. It's very important that people have a place to learn different things and see things.
Mhm. Great. Well, thank you, Megan. You regularly submit to our juried exhibitions, so we'll be seeing more work from you in our upcoming shows, I'm certain. Was there any final note that you want to leave for emerging artists? I know you touched on the importance of making work by hand. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention there?
Just basically do what you love and do what you feel.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
What did you want me to say?
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready. If you want me to prompt you with questions, we can do that. But let's start with the back end of it. What is your relationship to the Art Center? How long have you been participating with us? Or how'd you hear about us? How's that?
Yeah, I had one of the faculty at UF had a solo show at the Art Center, probably a couple years ago now. So I did hear about it, and I think this is like my second year probably participating in shows. And I primarily work in digital photography and video art performance. So I've kind of had both shown at the center, both my photography and my video work as well.
Great, great. And you're coming to us from grad school in Gainesville, correct?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Just, it helps to say that it's outside of Sarasota too.
Yes.
Okay, so you say photography and videos. Let's start with some of your biggest influences, whether it's individual artists, movements in art. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one of my biggest influences right now, I'm currently working on my thesis show, so I've had to look at a lot of different references lately. But one of the biggest things I've been looking at is feminist film theory, particularly like the monstrous feminine, Barbara Creed, looking at the American horror film landscape and the different theories that revolve around female archetypes and representations of female characters in the fear of the female body um, and some of the uh, taboos that are related to that. So that's definitely something that I'm looking at a lot right now.
Great. I just started a book called Art Monsters by Lauren Elkin too. Yeah, it's brand new. It's a good one.
Nice.
Okay, so let's talk about your conceptual practice or process. So, the Motenka photograph is influenced by like a little bit of folklore, this idea of the hand-me-down doll or that continuation there. Where do you source your information when you're coming up with a concept?
Yeah, I would say my conceptual process definitely begins with like one specific element. So I just have like a notes app on my phone where I'll like write down like keywords or different elements that I'm interested in exploring. And particularly with still photographs, usually it's like an element like that. So my mother's family is Ukrainian, so I've researched some of that in my other work. So just kind of like marking down that would be super interesting to explore at another time when I have time to do that. So yeah, I would say I definitely starts from like a base and then I'll go back to that note and see if I can combine any of those things together or if there's something else that I can look into off of that. Like for instance, I had the Matanka written down for quite a while. And then when reading the Barbara Creed and about feminine objection and that sort of thing, that's kind of like how I link those two things together.
Great, great. Let's talk about maybe the technical part of your work too. So you're in grad school now, but in undergrad, were you were you taught video and photography, or was it something that you experimented with on your own and then built over time? What is the basis for that? And then how have you sort of made it your own as you're going into your thesis?
Yeah, my dad is actually a photographic artist, so that's kind of like where I started that interest. So in undergrad, I pretty much only focused in photography. Obviously, you take other foundational classes in different areas, but that was kind of like the thing that I focused on the most. And I graduated from my undergrad in 2021, so a lot of that, BA show work was during COVID when you couldn't be around other people. So that's kind of like how I shifted into self-portraiture and using myself as a model, because I couldn't be around anybody else. And to do what I wanted to do, I needed a human there. And that's kind of how that practice began. Because at the beginning, it was extremely challenging having to set up your camera, set up the scene, set up yourself, and then, do all of that at the same time. That was a really challenging thing, but I kind of learned from that using your own body, you don't have to tell anybody else what you want to happen. You can just do it. So I've found a lot of freedom in that. And while it is challenging and probably takes longer than it would if you're shooting with somebody else, I think that I've incorporated it into my practice in a really successful way as I am right now. And then going into grad school, I am focusing in creative photography, but like I said, a lot of my current work is video art. So I took one class like my first semester in grad school that was surrounding video art, and I kind of just kept doing it from there. And that's what my thesis show will be, is a video installation.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you set up real life still lifes as you're working through these ideas too, right? So an installation, I think, fits what you do very well, right?
Yeah.
And then how does your work relate to the contemporary art world? So beyond yourself and being in school, yeah, how does it relate to maybe other artists or other movements in art? And are you showing anywhere outside of Florida as well?
Yeah, I showed at the Woman Made Gallery in Chicago probably last spring, I think. That's the most recent one that I did that was outside of Florida. But as far as like contemporary art spaces, I think the like digital landscape and online spaces for contemporary art is kind of something new that's becoming more interesting to people outside of the art world. So that's definitely kind of like where I'm situating myself. I talk about a lot of things related to digital culture in the online space, discussing like female archetypes and the normalcy of taboos relating to the female body. So I think specifically like the digital space is kind of where I'm situating myself at right now.
Sure. And I read a great response to a comment that someone made on Instagram the other day, and you explained your work pretty well, very well. And you also mentioned that there's this humorous element too, right? So there's this sense of kind of playfulness or humor. This is kind of a question that I've had. Your work is very confrontational. I love confrontational work. I mean this as a compliment. And does that humor kind of balance out that confrontation for you? Have you found that that's helpful there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also, something that I talk to students a lot about because they come up with these very conceptual ideas that have like multiple levels of metaphors and all of that stuff, which is awesome. But I also think it's important to be nice to your audience and offer them an entry point. So if they're not necessarily interested in discussing the taboos of the female body in digital spaces, you can offer them something that will, start an interest in that through humor and comedy and that sort of thing. So I think that that's definitely a way to challenge those notions, but I also think it's a way to kind of like open the conversation up to people that might not necessarily be interested in having that in the beginning.
And so then how do you consider a piece of artwork successful? What does success look like for you?
Yeah, I think balancing that conceptual complexity with accessibility, like I said, allowing people an entry point to your work. I definitely think that's something that I would qualify as successful. And I also think, going beyond aesthetics and going beyond, is this work beautiful? You want people to take something away from it besides that. So, like the humor in my piece, that's something that I can get people in the door with. But hopefully they'll, start to have critical conversations about things that are more related to contemporary society as well.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we move on to Perlie? No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Oh, Perlie, you're muted. Hold on one second. There we go.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. It's so interesting listening to Lindsay talk, and I'll tell you guys why. I belong to Studio Art Quilt Association. It's called SAQA. That's the acronym. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but we're in 38 countries all over the world, and we compete using fiber art. And I am a leader. It's called a pod. We have pods, and I'm a pod leader. And I'm conducting something this weekend at the Elliott Museum in Stuart, Florida. And so interesting listening to Lindsay, because this is an exhibit that has been on the road now for 2 years, and there's 30 quilts, and 2 of the quilts were censored from the Elliott Museum, and it was not handled very well. They never called us and told us that they would not be showing these quilts. And Lindsay, I think you're entering into a world where, I'm so glad you're doing it, and that one of them was all about the Holocaust, and another one was about Roe versus Wade. And the quilts were not allowed to be hung. And the SAQA management didn't want to ruffle feathers with the museum, so they allowed the show to go on, excluding these 2 censored pieces. And then a few days later, there was another show, and it was for the I forgot where the show was, but they also rejected 2 of the pieces. And this time, Worldwide SAQA said that's not okay. You cannot do that. Either you hang them all, or we're not going to put our work in your show. And that's basically, I don't know if you folks are familiar with SAQA, but they're pretty vocal and well known. So it's interesting that you're talking about these great ideas and that you're setting forth. I really hope they don't get censored like some of ours did.
Yeah, I agree. Let's keep the contemporary art world moving
Yes,
forward.
for sure.
Okay,
But
well, Perlie,
yes,
on that note, let's transition to you and your art making process.
yes.
What is your subject matter like? Do you always do portraits?
No, I actually just started sewing. I didn't even know how to sew 10 years ago. So this whole sewing experience is brand new to me. And I started making quilts, traditional quilts. I joined a guild, and then I took a class with an art quilter, and I just fell in love with it. I loved it. I loved creating my own designs. I don't use any patterns, or I don't I don't do anything traditional. My most favorite activity is surface design, and I love dyeing fabric. and discharging fabric and creating like that. But I do have another portrait. I'll show it to you. This was kind of made me think. You see it? Frida?
Mhm.
Frida K. It's another portrait. And I was in a show up in Orlando. It was the Frida show. And I was there with a bunch of other artists who were painters, and they were asking like 7,000, 9,000 for their paintings. And I came along with my little Frida, all fabric, and I was asking 500, and I got an award. So it was just it just kind of blew me away. So I've been on that trend, and I just love learning new things and exploring and using my surface design. And most of all, I love when my quilt tells a story. When you look at my quilt and you kind of see what I'm saying, and you can relate to my story. And that's what I like to do.
Great. Are those stories, like found stories, or are they personal stories, or a little bit of
Both, but one one of my favorite is my mom used to give me 25 cents to go. I'm Italian, so we had to have fresh bread every day. She gave me 25 cents to go buy a loaf of Italian bread every day, and I got to keep like 2 cents or 3 cents, and it was such a treat for me on my bicycle. So I did a quilt of myself on the bicycle. Yeah, if you don't mind. And I would go through trees, a bunch of trees, and I was 10 years old, and I'm driving my bicycle through all these trees, and I pretended that the knights were holding up their knights for me, and the queen was going through. And my husband's getting a quilt for you to see.
fun?
So I love my quilts telling a story. And oops.
The joy of the home studio. It's in there somewhere, right?
And this,
Oh, nice. Yes.
so and so those are the kind of quilts I like to do, that tell a story, that you look at it and you wonder. And then, of course, I describe it in my artist statement.
They're almost like a storybook illustration.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Yes.
Perlie, do you use found fabrics as well, or maybe found and then manipulated?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, that's why I go to thrift stores and uh yard sales. Yes, I look to incorporate all sorts of items.
Great. So what are maybe some of your biggest challenges as an artist, and how you've worked through them, or, what have you faced over the years?
Lately, what I've been working on is coming up with abstract work, because telling a story has been wonderful for me, and now I'm entering into doing some abstract work. And I belong to a group of artists that there's 12 of us, and we call ourselves the Dirty Dozen. And we took a photo, just a photo, and they said, you have to come up with a design based on this photo. And so Gary, is that? Hang on.
Okay, yeah, that feels very different.
Yeah, very different. And I've dyed all this fabric. It's all dyed fabric. And so now I'm entering into the world of the abstract world.
Great. Wait till she walks back over.
So people have said when they talk about me, they said that I'm fearless. That's the word they use, that I delve into stuff I probably shouldn't be delving into, but that's what I do and I don't stop if it's not right. I do it over again.
So how do you consider, or what do you consider to be a successful work for you? And how do you know you're done?
I'm sorry, how do I know what?
How do you know the work is done and successful?
That is a very tough one. How do you, because I always call my work the brass door, the song about, or the story about the guy who keeps working on the brass door and somebody asks him, when are you finished? And he says, when they take it away. And so I tend to do that. I tend to work on it and work on it until I get it just right. And then once I face it or frame it, then it's done.
That frame is the final piece.
And it's the
That's
final
nice.
piece, and I still look and see where I made mistakes, but yeah.
Great. Well, while you were speaking, we actually got a question from Mary. And I don't think we went over this since we started. Her question is, she's curious about your process, and do you print the background with Maya's words? So if you could talk about that.
I did not, I was going to, and I was asking people on Facebook, and somebody told me that Spoon Flower has already made that fabric. So I ordered that background fabric from Spoon Flower. You can do that if you want, is order fabric and they turn, from Spoon Flower, but it was already available and I was so happy that it was.
Great. I'm actually going to pull that slideshow back up and we'll open it up for questions.
I do have a question. This is Leslie. I'm interested in your quilting techniques. Are you doing applique or a mix of piecing and applique?
To me?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Is it
Yes,
Tilly?
absolutely. Yep. I have a Bernina stitch regulator, so that helps me with the background. But yes, I do both, and I do walking foot quilting as well, and that's what this is, walking foot quilting.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing about your stories and your techniques. I'm looking forward to looking up the association that you're part of.
SAQA, yeah, please. There's a group. There's a really big group in Sarasota.
Excellent.
That
It's so nice to see fiber pieces being award winners, both
yes.
yours and Meg's. I'm thrilled.
So am I. So, you must join the Sarasota SAQA people. They're wonderful.
Great. Well, we're through my list of questions. So I just want to say thank you all again for attending tonight. This will be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to refer back to it or send anyone else to it, you are welcome to. Again, the On View exhibition in real life will be up until March 1st, as well as online. We've got several more works listed there as well. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all soon, hopefully for the next Juried show.